Plants are some of the most ancient types of complex life on our planet. Their key to success is photosynthesis. This is their ability to harness the power of the sun to create their own food from the basic ingredients of carbon dioxide and water. Plants live in almost every part of our planet, from the seas to the highest mountains. Some plants tolerate extreme cold and hard frosts. Others can survive in harsh, hot deserts devoid of water. Plants play a very important role on our world by providing the energy that supports all animal life. They are the only group of complex life to conquer the whole planet without the ability to actually move around. All plants are rooted to the spot where they first started their lives. So how did they reach such amazing heights of global success? It's all to do with their ingenious method of getting around, seed dispersal. My name's Ollie, welcome to today's video, and today we're going to talk all about how plants get around. Before plants can cast their seeds out into the world, they first need to make them. For many plants, this means producing pollen and finding a way to get it to the ovary of another plant of the same species. Many plants, like grasses and some trees, just cast their pollen out into the air and hope for the best. This floating pollen causes allergies to some people, known as hay fever. Other plants have evolved a more accurate method of spreading their pollen. They enlist the help of animals called pollinators. These creatures visit the flowers of these plants, attracted by the beautiful colours and the promise of sugary nectar. They accidentally cover themselves in pollen as they push deeper into the flower to get to the nectar. When they visit another flower belonging to the same species, they will pass the pollen package into that plant's ovary, and that plant is now able to grow its seeds. Bees and other flying insects like moths and butterflies are very common pollinators, which pollinate thousands of different plants, including many of the species that we need for food. But there are many more pollinators out there. Bats, hummingbirds, monkeys, lemurs, and even 2 species of lizard have been seen to pollinate plants too. There is even pollination at sea. Some seagrasses rely on tiny crustaceans related to shrimp to pass on their pollen. Once the seeds have formed, plants now have an even bigger problem. They can't let the seeds just drop to the ground below, otherwise the new seedlings would be growing in the shade of their parent and will be competing with it for water and root space. Instead, yet again, plants ask animals for their assistance, as well as the forces of nature. Plants like pine trees, oaks, hazels, and others enlist the help of animals like squirrels, who avidly collect and bury the nuts and seeds for later. The squirrels inevitably forget where their stashes are buried a lot of the time, and from these hidden corners of the forest, new trees can sprout. Others will grow delicious fruit for the many species of frugivorous or fruit-eating animals, such as some species of bats, monkeys, and birds. These creatures eat the yummy fruit, but the seeds buried within pass through their digestive system and end up in a lice packet of fertilizer, which is their poop. Many animals will travel vast distances between fruit meals, carrying seeds in their bellies for many, many miles. Pineapples and watermelons are examples of some tropical fruit, but all fruit, whether it's big or small, has the same purpose: to get an animal to eat it and have those seeds pass through their digestive system, carrying the seeds a great distance away in the process. Plants create fruit of all different types, but many fruits will have their seeds on the inside and they will have soft, juicy flesh surrounding it. Fruits like this are called berries. So things like blueberries are in fact properly berries, but strawberries are not, since their seeds are actually on the outside. A watermelon, though, is a type of berry, and so are other things like pumpkins and squash. Quite strange to think about. Some plants are quite picky about which animals they want to eat their fruits. The fruits of the capsicum plant are very spicy to us mammals. These chilies, like this one here, contain a compound called capsaicin. which tricks our brains into thinking we're eating something that is really, really hot. The seeds of the capsicum plants are very soft and will be ground up very easily by our mammalian teeth. So they opt for an animal with no teeth at all, birds. Birds cannot taste the painful effects of capsaicin, so they can feel free to eat as many chilies as they like. So if your garden bird feeder is always plagued by hungry squirrels, add some chili flakes. It'll scare off the squirrels and leave your seed for the birds. Mammals can still lend a hand in dispersing seeds, but not in our bellies. The seeds of the burdock plant are covered in tiny hooks, perfectly evolved to snag on that most mammalian of features, fur. Seed burrs, as they are known, embed themselves stubbornly in their hair and eventually drop off after a few days. In this time, they will likely be far away from their parent plant and hopefully in a nice new spot ready to start their lives. The invention of Velcro was said to be inspired by this interaction between soft fur and sharp hooks. Have a close look at the two sides of Velcro and you'll notice those soft loops and the rigid plastic hooks. In this activity, we're going to try to create a seed burr, and to do this, we'll need a small plastic ball and some little pieces of Velcro. You can get Velcro in long strips or in little sticky dots like this. I'm going to peel these off and stick them all the way around this little ping pong ball, evenly spread if I can, to turn it into a seed burr, and then we're going to test it out to see if it can hook on to mammalian fur. So I'm using the hooked side of the Velcro rather than the loop side to get the best effect. So I'm going to cover this ball in as many sticky dots as I can, and then I'm going to throw it at something that has fur on it. So I'll cover this up as best I can and find something furry. Now, if you've got a pet at home, I wouldn't recommend throwing balls at your pet, but you can stick these onto things like woolly jumpers, and even you can try sticking them onto your own hair as well, see if that works. So I've covered this now in sticky little dots of Velcro and it's ready to be thrown. I've got a great big section of fur here, and let's see if I can hook it onto it, and it hooks on really well. So you can see here how a seed burr can get a really firm grip on the side of an animal that might have been foraging for food nearby, and it will carry that seed burr a long, long way away. And let's see if it works even with us humans. Perfect. I might never know that I'm carrying this seed burr for many miles. Some plants don't invest energy into growing big sugary fruits or heavy hooked seed pods. Instead, they let the gentle breeze do all the work and make light, fluffy seeds. Dandelions and sycamores are excellent examples of plants which use a method called wind dispersal to spread their fertile seeds around. Dandelion seeds have fluffy little umbrellas which can coast on the thinnest of breezes, carrying the seeds downwind. Sycamores go a step further. Their seeds have wings. The wings of a sycamore seed resemble those of insects, but they don't flap. Instead, they spin in the wind like the blades of a helicopter. Since we've had a go at making little seed burrs, now let's try and make a different type of seed pod, one that can float on the breeze. We're going to try and make a spinning helicopter seed pod. To do this, we'll need just two things. We'll need a little pair of scissors and a paper cup. The first thing we need to do is find the seam of the cup and cut from the opening of the cup down to the base, but we're not going to cut all the way through. So I'll show you what I mean. Going to start cutting from one side all the way down to about here. So not all the way through, just to where the paper meets the base of the cup. Once I've done that, I'm going to find the opposite side and cut from here to the back as well. So I'll find the opposite end and cut through in as straight a line as I can to the other side. So now I have it in two halves. To make it into 4, I'm going to find the middle part of these two sides and cut here and here to divide it into 4 quarters. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but we just want to make sure we've got it into 4 because it makes the final step much easier. So I've got 4 pieces now, 4 panels, and now I'm going to cut each of these in half. So starting here up to the top on each one, and that will give me 8 fairly evenly spaced little flaps to play with later. So I'm going to cut these now, 4 more cuts. And once these are all cut through, we can then fold it to make it fly. So to do the folding, now that I've got my 8 little flaps, I'm going to fold one, skip the next one, and fold this one. So I'm going to fold alternating blades out. So I've got 4 folded up and 4 pointing down, sort of like a windmill. The last step is I'm going to fold the ones that are pointing down just in half, like this. So I'm going to fold these ones in half as they go around. So they're like 4 little feet that it can sit on like this. So this is the pattern we're going to go for. Once this is made, we can hold it at the top and try spinning it with our fingers to see if it flies. And they fly really, really well. They flutter and float through the air just like a sycamore seed would. And in the same way as a sycamore seed, they are relying on their amazingly evolved wing, but also on the power of the wind to carry them. Some peculiar plants that live in areas where the wind currents might not be so predictable will energetically fling their seeds away. The Himalayan balsam plant grows tightly packed seed pods that are pressure sensitive. If touched, they explosively crack open as the outside of the pod curls up rapidly, sending the tiny seeds out in every direction. The gunpowder tree is perhaps the most extreme example of this type of seed dispersal. Its seed pods are the size of a cannonball, and when they explode on contact with the ground, they send tiny little disc-shaped seeds out at over 100 miles an hour. Explosive seed dispersal is, I think, one of the coolest methods that plants use to spread their seeds. So let's try and make an explosive seed pod next. To do this, we will need some similar materials. We'll need another paper cup, a pair of scissors, and this time we'll also need a balloon, and then we'll need some seeds. I'm using some little colourful pom-poms, but you could also use some little bunched up pieces of paper. To make this machine, what we need to do to start off with is remove the base from the cup. So I'm going to put my scissor blade in. It might be worth asking a grown-up to help you with this. And you need to cut around in a circle like this to remove the base. And peel it off. So now you've got a little hollow cylinder like this. The next step, we need to take our balloon and tie a knot in the neck. Just like this. So we're going to knot in the neck like this. This will be our handle. And now we need to cut just the tip of the balloon off. So I'm going to make a little cut in the top here. And once that's cut off, I'm going to stretch it around the base of the cup. So I cut this free, and I'm going to stretch it around the end of the cup. So now that this is on tightly, you can pull it down a little bit. You can also secure this by adding some tape around the edge as well. But we are basically finished. We've got our exploding seed pod. All we need to do now is add our seeds and try to launch them. To do this, I'm going to hold on to the cup at the base where the balloon is attached, pull down on the handle, and launch the seeds into the sky, an exploding seed pod. So we've covered dispersal by fruits, we've covered dispersal by wind, so wind dispersal, and also explosive seed dispersal too. But what about plants that live in the water? There are thousands of types of plants that live in shallow water. How might they spread their seeds? Well, here's an example of one. This very strange looking seed here belongs to the plant called a water caldrop, and they are found across Europe and some parts of North America. This one was found on a beach, however, which means it has a very interesting story behind it. This seed pod will have left its parent plant, been washed all the way downriver into the ocean, and then washed up on the beach, so it's had quite a journey. These seeds are very special because they can float on water. And this one is particularly special because of its amazing adaptations. Not only does it float, it's also covered in these wonderful spikes. In fact, another name for this is the buffalo nut or bat nut because of these amazing spiky horns on it. These horns have probably evolved for two purposes. One, to allow this special seed to hook into the riverbank so that it can start a new life. Also, so that it doesn't get swallowed by fish. I think a fish would have a very hard time trying to swallow this very spiky little seed pod. So there are many other examples of seed dispersal by water, and possibly the most famous of all is the coconut. Coconuts can float across the ocean for miles and miles until they wash up on a desolate island ready to start their new life. And this is how we find coconut palms on all these desolate desert islands in the tropics. Speaking of tropical palm trees, the biggest seed in the world comes from a type of palm tree called the Coco de Mer. They grow in the Seychelles Islands. And this seed pod is absolutely enormous, about 30 centimeters across and 18 kilograms in weight. And this seed is unique because it doesn't rely on any dispersal mechanism at all. The huge nut contains such an enormous amount of energy that all it needs to do is lie on the ground and wait. It can wait for decades and decades until its parent tree has died. When its parent tree dies and falls, there is an opening in the canopy for the new tree to grow into and fill. We've talked today about how interesting seeds can be and the many ingenious ways plants have evolved to spread them around. But are seeds important? Seeds are in fact incredibly important to us. They are the root source of all of our food. They grow the plants that we eat and those we feed to our farm animals. Humans farm hundreds of thousands of different crops, and the seeds of these plants are essential for our continued survival on Earth. As a result, scientists and engineers have got together across the world to build seed vaults, which they store our most important seeds just in case we lose them out in the real world. There are 1,700 seed vaults in the world, and perhaps the most famous of them all is the Svalbard Seed Vault, located about 800 miles from the North Pole and built high up into the side of a mountain. It's built so high up so that even if all the ice on planet Earth melted, it would still be above sea level. And deep in the coldest depths of this mountain, it never reaches more than -5 degrees Celsius, so that even if all the power went out, all those seeds stored there would still be kept frozen and safe. Seeds have been a part of human life for as long as humans have existed. They are incredibly important. They provide all of our food, and of course, they provide plants, and plants are the energy source for all animal life on Earth. I hope you enjoyed watching this video with me, and I hope you're going to enjoy creating the fun things we made today, and I look forward to seeing you again in another video. Bye for now.